We'll just move to the Botanic Gardens Old Information Centre, item number 12, lease to Jenny Gillies. Thank you very much for working so quickly to bring back a paper with a recommendation around looking for a solution that enables both the propositions that we were considering before to be considered. So I know that some of the councillors had issues that they wanted to raise. Dion was one. Dion?
I think the issue that I wanted to raise actually, and it was maybe if we can get potentially amend the resolution, and I've spoken to Andrew. I'm having a brain moment.
Regenerate Christchurch. Oh.
Sorry, I've been away a while. Yeah. Andrew, about it is around the time period of the lease, and I just wanted to sort of get you to discuss around the potential of a 1+1 and what your thoughts were around that.
Sure. I'll get Luke to respond to that question if okay, because it's actually a leasing question. So.
Oh, well, I think at the end of the day, you know, 1 year plus a monthly rollover clause from there provides flexibility for both the council. I mean, if the future plans for the site proceed, or if Jenny finds a different location outside of the Botanic Gardens. So that's our recommendation at this stage.
So in essence, it's not capped at 1 year. There are rollover clauses that can be negotiated as we. As either the planning and development around the Science and Research Centre unfolds, that will obviously come back in front of council, and or any other alternative locations evolve for Jenny.
Yeah, the resolution up there says for up to 1 year.
Well, a basic lease includes a holding over period, which is a month-to-month basis after expiry.
Yeah, so it's a technical thing that sits in the background, but by all means, for clarity, you know, for the public record, we'll feel free to amend that.
Yeah, okay.
And the other thing was, I think you wanted to raise about
Christchurch NZ?
Yeah.
So Christchurch NZ have written a letter of support for Jenny Gillies as well as an attraction. So the other thing that I would like to do is just get another resolution in there just for Christchurch NZ to work with Jenny Gillies directly next year for a more longer term solution around the attraction that what's it called?
Enchanted Gardens.
The Enchanted Gardens has for Christchurch as a whole.
Sure.
So some wording that just basically says request Christchurch NZ to consider to work with Jenny Gillies for a longer term solution. But it's around their role as for visitor attraction, isn't it? Yeah.
Their point that they say is that, you know, from the research that they've done is that it has a high visitor attraction for Christchurch and they don't want to lose it.
Okay. Andrew?
Thank you. Presumably in working up this paper and appreciating it's been done very quickly, and thank you for that, there's been contact with Jenny Gillies as the other party to the lease. That would be correct?
We've been having ongoing discussions with Jenny regarding her opportunities within the gardens.
So so the term of the lease, obviously here you're proposing a year with the option of, well, with the possibility of going month by month after that. What was Jenny's response to that? Is she comfortable with the 1 year and the month by month ongoing, or was she looking for more than that?
Oh, we know that Jenny's looking for a longer lease than 1 year if possible. But we're trying to find a balance here between future aspirations for the site and flexibility for both parties.
Yeah. Noting that the financial implications, the cost of moving the exhibition is to be borne by Jenny, do we know what the likely cost of that would be?
Oh, we would have to talk to Jenny about that, but I think it's just a matter of moving the exhibition, which would take some time and probably some power set up, but we would work through that with Jenny.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of the year and then month by month after that,
yeah,
if we were in a position where the future use of this facility wasn't determined at that time, there would be nothing to stop that rolling on a month-by-month basis, or for a further fixed-term lease period to be agreed at that point if we were in a position to do that. I'm just thinking if this other plan doesn't roll on as quickly as it might,
Yep.
you know, obviously we want to be in a position to give as much certainty to Jenny as we can if that's what she's looking for at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it will be down to the Botanic Gardens team and what their future aspirations are and how that works out. But, you know, we would probably need to bring a paper back to council if there was going to be a further fixed-term lease.
So I guess just to add to that, what staff are trying to do is, I guess, clearly signal that we've, through the development of the spatial plan and the stakeholder engagement work that went on for us about an 18-month period, and then the following decisions around LTP funding, there's a commitment's already been made at a very high level. It doesn't mean that it is the solution, but if we commit to a longer-term lease for Jenny now, we've really got to start retracting backwards on that initiative. And so what we're wanting to do is to have the capability to run these processes in parallel until we, you know, we have an active capital project for the Science and Research Centre. Engagement's already started with that process with external parties. Now, that doesn't mean that the Science and Research Centre has to go there, but that's what the spatial plan has signalled at this point. And so having this level of flexibility allows progress, you know, allows us to progress and evolve the final outcome.
And if we approve the resolution as it's set out today, we're expecting that Jenny will be comfortable enough with that she would sign it and she would go in there for the year. We're not expecting that this wouldn't be acceptable to her, even though we know that she's, you know, would prefer something longer.
Well, I mean, ultimately it's a question for Jenny, but I mean, she's made it clear that a one-year lease, you know, has its difficulties, and naturally it would. It's not an ideal situation, but in our view, it gives us the ability to continue with our program around the development of the Science and Research Centre and work out whether or not that building is in fact the most suitable location. And it may turn out that through those investigations that it's not, and then we can further progress.
So it could be, from the answer to that question, that we agree to this today, but Jenny's response to that is that she's not willing to go into this space on those terms.
Absolutely, I'm sure that could be a potential response.
So that conversation hasn't been had with Jenny prior to this decision being made?
No, we've put the options forward today, which tries to seek a balance for both parties. At the end of the day, the original proposal here was regarding the tea kiosk building. This has been a spin-off. And we're trying to work with everyone here to make this fit, but we also don't want to compromise the future plans for the site. But I think, you know, Jenny has signalled that she wants to work with the council going forward and that she would be prepared to go into that building for a short-term period. But again, we have to work through the lease terms. You know, we haven't looked at any of that detail yet.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. So I was just interested in the approval or otherwise of the Science Centre. So how much money is currently on budget for that, and in what year?
So in this there's a total of about $500,000 on budget in total in years 1 and 2 of the LTP.
Right. And the process for determining the spending of that is what?
It's the normal process. It's engagement with the relevant stakeholders, conceptualisation, bring it back to council, seek resolutions to proceed. Nothing unusual.
Right. Do we have a budget breakdown of what the costs would be to do it versus the other projects that are within that budget?
I'm not entirely sure I understand your question.
Okay.
Sorry, Jan.
So the delivery package has got construct 4 Waharawa entrance structures, repurpose the old visitor centre and Alpine Garden House, and construct an internal glass wall. I'm just wondering what the budget is for each of those, how we've come up with the amount that's required versus the new.
They put money on budget for a project which will come back for a decision, and all of the detail will be in the decision paper.
There's several projects that money's tagged to.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to understand between each of those projects how much has been tagged to the new science centre.
We don't know the answer to that yet.
Right.
Part of the process of engagement, with sort of partners that have been long identified in the management plan, is to seek opportunities for sharing of facilities and potentially for funding contributions. So we're at the beginning of that process. We're nowhere near having a true understanding of what that costs may look like.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to, the reason I'm asking is I'm trying to understand how long it would take to get some action. And, you know, if I look at recent stuff that we've done in the Botanic Gardens, like the lighting, for example, it would seem to me that 2 years would be, you know, a reasonable time frame to expect us to be in a position to actually do something. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I would favour the 2 years.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
Because I can't see how.
Are we going to be ready to have a conversation with council within 2 years? Is effectively your question.
Yes. The answer is yes.
And the answer to that is potentially. It really comes down to some of those stakeholder conversations, and it also comes down to progressing the conceptualisation and then being able to do some quantity surveying of what the ultimate cost could be. Right. And some options analysis. So, yeah, it could take more than 12 months, but I wouldn't anticipate that I would anticipate that we'd be back in front of council on this particular project, you know, well within, initially, well within the 12 months from now. We're not going to come to you and go, here's a solution, yes or no. We're going to go on a progressive journey. This is transformational for the Botanic Gardens.
It is, absolutely.
I get that, but I mean, in terms of people, actually the need to start the work, it would seem to me 2 years would be you know, I appreciate all the work that will go on in the interim.
They've already started engaging with the universities, Yanni. I mean, they've said that in the paper. I mean, it's not just a clear-cut situation, because it is a journey that they're on. I mean, that's what the spatial plan was all about.
Yeah, there's also the Botanic Gardens management plan, and you know, I guess the other issue that has been raised through this process is the utilisation of the new centre. Are we able, maybe not today, but at some point, to get some information around how ILEX is performing in terms of the community space? Because if you go through the Botanic Gardens management plan, that centre was supposed to cater for a number of things now that we're putting into the tea kiosk and possibly going into this new centre.
It was an event space.
So.
Anyway, sorry, did you want to move the amendment?
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking here a little bit of a compromise of because I don't think 2 years is going to fly. So I mean, a compromise that I'm trying to think is amending the words for a period of, oh sorry, I had it in my head just a second ago, for an initial period of up to 18 months. Just for that certainty part, really. This is what I'm trying to do here. I mean, there's a move cost associated, and then a little bit of certainty, and an initial period of up to 18 months, I think, is a compromise, which would then allow that month-to-month rollover if it was going to be at that point in time.
I mean, we'll save that for the debate, because that's the debate. That's the debatable matter.
That's what I was going to initially, or move an amendment.
Yeah. No, well, the
Is that? Well, move the substantive or change.
No. I will move the motion then that is here, and seconded by Tim. Now, if you want to move an amendment,
okay, then I'll do that.
To that, so that is to replace the period of up to 1 year to up to 18 months.
Yes. Sorry. For an initial period of up to 18 months.
For an initial period of up to 18 months. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
Andrew. All right. We've got a mover and a seconder for the amendment.
So it's just keeping one exactly the same, but just changing from the comma for an initial period of up to, for an initial period of 18 months.
Yeah, they'll just copy the they'll copy number 1 and then make the amendment to it and then put that up as a separate item. So that's been moved by Dion and seconded by Andrew. So when I open this up for debate, we'll debate both the amendment and the resolution, and I'll put the amendment first and then I'll put the resolution. Are there any other questions for staff? No? Okay, I shall open it up for debate. Andrew.
Thank you. It doesn't surprise me that the length of the lease has become the matter of debate here. I'm concerned about the answers I got to some of my questions. It would seem that the purpose of this paper coming in front of us today is to secure a short-term future, or maybe even a medium-term future for Jenny and her exhibition. That certainly was what was expressed by Council when we had the debate about the tea kiosk a couple of weeks ago. So it's great that we've got this paper in front of us today and that it's been turned around so quickly so that we can have this conversation. However, for us to be considering a term of lease which we're hearing may in fact not be acceptable to Jenny as the lessee, we could end up making a decision today which doesn't achieve the outcome that we want, which is to provide a short-term or medium answer for this particular facility and give Christchurch NZ the opportunity to work with Jenny in the meantime to find a longer-term solution. There's clearly some work to be done and some uncertainty around the future project. I appreciate that that forms part of the planning for the Botanic Gardens and is an important project that needs to be allowed to proceed. But for me, this is about finding the balance that gives the right amount of certainty to Jenny that we can see a future for her project and that still allows a reasonable time frame for the future project to proceed as well. So I think 18 months is a good compromise. When you consider the cost of relocation and also the hassle or the inconvenience in relocation for Jenny, you know, essentially she's relocating a business to a new premises. 18 months makes that far more worthwhile for her, I would imagine, than the 1 year. And I'm particularly concerned that, you know, if the 1 year isn't acceptable to her, we don't actually achieve the thing that we've set out to achieve in bringing this paper before Council.
Mike?
Thank you. I'm also going to be supporting the amendment. Really, to me, if the 1 year was given and it did end in 1 year, basically means that Jenny would be out right on Christmas in 2019, which is not really great. So to me, what we do know, one thing in council is obviously 1 year is not a long time, and it just flies by. And I just think that 18 months just gives a little bit more security and time to get a few things organised and sorted, because I'm sure, you know, if we just did 1 year, we're not going to get further enough down the track to actually get enough information to even have anything in there. So.
Anne?
I'll also be supporting the 18 months because I think firstly, thank you to staff for the quick work that you've done here. And I realise, you know, we all realise it's difficult, you know, balancing everybody's needs. But I think it shows that we are valuing the work that Jenny's done. And I think we also can see that this is a very an important attraction for our inner city, and it's brought real value to visitor experience as well as for residents. It's almost like we've got our own wow, you know, museum here in Christchurch. So thank you for the work that you've done, and I think that we'll all go hopefully forward to establish Jenny's exhibition as a permanent part of our city. So thank you.
Vicky?
I will support the 12-month, but definitely not 18 months. This doesn't kick in until the 28th of February anyway, so they won't be out on there at Christmas at all. The Horticultural Society have been good about delaying their entry. As far as I'm concerned, the priority in the Botanic Gardens is about what we can do in terms of the world involvement in plants. And a science and research centre that deals with plant biodiversity and research ranks way above a very small exhibition. The fact that the universities in Canterbury and Lincoln are currently talking very closely together would be involved in this, and a seed bank, in terms of the priorities for the world, just seem to be way, way ahead of what we're doing. We're already breaking our own leasing policy of not putting things out to the public in order to help a particular person who went in a particular business that went in on a short-term arrangement anyway. I think the staff have done an amazing job to turn this around in a very short time to provide her with an interim solution. But actually there are a lot of businesses in Christchurch. We don't provide them all with their wherewithal. And the purpose of the Botanic Gardens is about the Botanic Gardens and plant research and biodiversity. In my priority list just ranks so much higher than a pay-for exhibition. And I have to say that the comments I've heard from the Botanic Gardens, because I use the ILEX Centre, about people having to pay to enter space in the Botanic Gardens have not been complimentary, just because of the pay factor, not necessarily about the exhibition, but people resent having to pay. So I'm fine that we provide her with some help, but I would much prefer that we were working fast to get the Biodiversity and Research Centre there. That is so much more of a priority for the Botanic Gardens. So I would definitely not go more than 12 months.
Tim?
Thank you. I am not supporting the amendment. I've always supported the substantive. Jenny Gillies has been here since 2016. It is a great and very special thing, but it is a commercial operation at the end of the day. It is the Botanic Gardens. It's a commercial operation in an incredibly unique position to anything else. And here we have, and our staff have done an amazing job turning this around to where we are today. But I really find it hard that we are giving priority to one person over everyone else moving around, the Horticultural Society, etc. Everybody's bending over backwards, which is fantastic, but there is a limit to that. I'm more than happy with the year long, with a month by month, because it may well go to 18 months. And we know, we talked about timelines, etc. We know that anything that happens takes planning, hopefully good planning, and so that we're not going to suddenly turn around to her in a year and say, hey, we're starting work tomorrow, you're out. You know, there is a real timeline to starting to look at what the spatial plans are for the Botanic Gardens and the planning for that. So I could see this well going even longer than 18 months. However, I think we should keep strong with the year-long lease, which is closer to our original policy. We should stick to that, because if we're going to start flexing around with Jenny Gillies, it really does open, I believe, for anyone else to come into that unique space and say, hey, I want a slice of this, because this isn't along the RFP process. This is exceptional to it, and I think it's kind of shaky ground. So I will not be supporting the amendment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yanni?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll definitely be supporting the amendment. I would have preferred 2 years. But, you know, like, at the end of the day, I think we've got major priorities. We've actually just passed a submission to the regeneration plan for the red zone about having a living laboratory there. You know, and part of the problem in our city at the moment is we keep getting all these new things that we want to do, and we struggle to fund it all. Here we've got something that's existing, going into a space that could be utilised as a transition for the next 2 years or 18 months. That means that we can actually focus on other things that are, you know, have a huge priority, like we've just heard people this morning around things like the Lower Heathcote River, where we can't even do basic maintenance. So, you know, I think there are opportunities to work through over the next 18 months what goes into the site. What we've heard and what we know from council is that these processes are never quick, and you can look at a whole bunch of projects that we're doing, Botanic Gardens uplighting, for example. It's a lot longer than 18 months. So, you know, I think the work around the Science Centre is important and should continue, but I can't see anything happening on the site for at least 18 months, if not longer. So I think actually using an existing building and getting something that's already established in there as a transition is great. I actually really like the idea of the creative and the Botanic coming together in these sorts of exhibitions and these spaces. The flower show that we used to run, one of the most popular events at that was the Jenny Gillies exhibition. It was a draw card. I don't know why we wouldn't want that in our Botanic Gardens. I think it's really important that we celebrate the creative design industries in our city, and this is actually a world-class, iconic, unique exhibition. So I welcome it being in our Botanic Gardens. The idea that it's somehow this commercial activity going on and that there's concern about it, the bigger issue for me is the fact that we've set up a commercial function centre that should have been the Botanic Gardens Centre doing all the other stuff that we're now having to put into the old buildings. So we actually built a brand new building that was supposed to deal with a number of non-commercial activities in the Botanic Gardens, which has been turned into a commercial function centre at the expense of all these other things that we're now having a competition for space. I think that's the bigger issue here and why we're getting into these sorts of debates. So strongly support 18 months. I think we're incredibly fortunate and lucky to have someone of the calibre of Jenny Gillies in our city, and I think it's a unique draw card and an attraction for us as a city that is a good fit as a transition over the next 18 months. So I hope people will support it.
Thank you. All right. I shall put the... Oh, yes?
So, I mean, this is slightly outside the norm, but, I mean, Jenny Gillies' Enchanted Garden is slightly outside the norm, which is what makes it unique and is what makes it so attractive inside the gardens. I'm just looking at TripAdvisor and it rates really highly on there. And I just wanted to read out one of the comments. This is an amazing display of costumes made of fabric that look like real flowers. You get right up to the costumes, an amazing display, and works really well with the Botanic Gardens. So that's just one comment, and there's a lot of them there. 18 months is what I've proposed here. It's a compromise for what my original position was. But it's a compromise because, one, I do want to see a science centre proceed, but as has already been said, I don't think that's going to come back to us in the 18 months anyway. But it might, and let's keep the work going on behind the scenes there. But this gives Jenny the certainty, at least, for 18 months to work with Christchurch NZ, which is the extra resolution there, and to get some certainty around her exhibition inside the old information centre. And I just think I really urge everybody to support that from everybody, everything that everybody has said. Gives that certainty. It's a good thing for the gardens. I like it, and a lot of people like it. We're trying to get attraction into our city. This is an attraction, and let's be that city that is open to new ideas, new ways of doing things, and supporting small business and actually making things happen.
Right, I shall put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Do you want to put up your hands?
For it or against it?
For it. Oh, that's carried. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciated how much work you put into that in such a short space of time.